The Galactic Council sat in a vast, cold room that stretched across an entire space station. The long, oval table was surrounded by representatives from various alien species, each with their own interests, their own desires, and their own reasons for being there. The debate had been heated for days, but today, a decision was finally going to be made. The topic on the table was humanity. For years, humans had been making waves in the galaxy. They were different from other species, bold, resourceful, and often unpredictable. They had become a thorn in the side of many more powerful and ancient species. From small skirmishes to political disputes, humanity had found itself at odds with the Galactic Council more than once. And now, it seemed the time had come for the galaxy to take action. The leader of the council, an alien named Solaris from the Andromeda system, stood up and motioned for silence. His species was known for its long lifespan and his gray-blue skin seemed to shimmer in the artificial lights above. He cleared his throat, his voice echoing through the chamber. The vote is now in session. We are here to decide the fate of humanity. Will they remain part of the Galactic Union, or will they be exiled, cast out beyond our borders, never to return? A murmur ran through the room, and all eyes turned to the holographic screens that displayed Earth and the surrounding space. The humans had always been a wild card no matter how much the galaxy tried to guide them. They insisted on doing things their own way. Many saw it as courage. Others, like Solaris, saw it as a threat. Solaris pressed a button on his console, and the first image appeared, a video feed from a human colony on a distant planet. The settlers were fighting against an alien species in the Outer Rim, trying to expand their territory and resources. The footage showed humans in combat, not retreating or surrendering, but pushing forward, driven by something deep inside them that other species could not quite understand. A few of the representatives exchanged looks, while others nodded, some in agreement and some in concern. But it was clear that this behavior was too much for the Council to ignore. Humans were a danger. No matter how many times the galaxy tried to negotiate peace, the humans had no interest in playing by the rules. They were a species of warriors, and their thirst for exploration and dominance knew no boundaries. We have tried everything, Solaris continued, his voice stern. Diplomacy, treaties, even alliances, but they do not listen. Earth has been warned. The time has come for the Council to act. The vote was called. One by one, each representative cast their vote on a holographic pad in front of them. The votes were counted quickly, and the result was clear. The majority of the Galactic Council had voted to exile Earth. A heavy silence filled the room. The decision was final. The humans would be exiled. On Earth, the announcement came as a shock. News broadcast across the planet flashed with the startling headline, "The Galactic Council votes to exile Earth." Humanity was stunned. It was a decision that no one had expected. The planet had fought so hard to earn its place among the stars. Now, the door to the galaxy was being slammed shut in their faces. At the United Nations headquarters, representatives from all over the world gathered to discuss the consequences. There was chaos, but also a strange sense of determination. They had been cast out, yes, but they were not going to stand idle. The human spirit was resilient. People knew that better than anyone. Dr. Emily Hayes, a leading scientist and strategist, stood at the podium. She had been briefed on the situation earlier that day, and now she was preparing to address the world. The room fell quiet as she began to speak. "The galaxy has decided to exile us," she said, her voice steady. "But this is not the end. This is the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The Council thinks they can just cast us aside like unwanted debris, but they are wrong. We will not wait for them to tell us what we can and cannot do. We will show them that humanity is a force that cannot be ignored. We are stronger than they realize." The crowd listened intently as she spoke. The world was still reeling from the shock of the vote, but there was a growing sense of unity. In the face of adversity, humanity had always found a way to survive, to thrive, to rise above the challenges they were faced with. And this time, it would be no different. The news spread quickly, and soon, all eyes were on Earth. Some species cheered the decision, convinced that the galaxy would be safer without the humans. Others were curious, unsure of what humanity would do next. But no one could deny that the humans had something that others didn't: an unyielding drive to survive, no matter the odds. Meanwhile, on Earth, plans were already being set into motion. The leaders of the world began to discuss their options. There was no time for mourning. Humanity had to move forward. One such leader, General Marcus Vance, stood in a secure underground facility with his top military advisors. The war room was filled with maps of the galaxy, showing Earth's location and the various alien species that had voted for its exile. He slammed his fist on the table. We've been cast out, but we are not weak. We are not helpless. We will find a way to survive out there, and we will do it on our terms. No more waiting for permission. No more asking for approval. Humanity is going to carve out its own path in the galaxy. The room buzzed with agreement. The military knew what needed to be done. Humanity would not cower in fear. It would fight for its place. As the days passed, humans began to realize the truth. They had no allies left in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had turned its back on them. But that didn't mean they were alone. There were others out there: alien factions, rogue groups, and independent colonies that had no loyalty to the Council. If they could unite these factions, Earth might have a chance to build a new empire, a new galactic presence that could stand up to the Council. Captain Ethan Harris of the Earth Space Fleet was chosen to lead this mission. With his experience and strategic mind, he was the perfect candidate to lead humanity's resistance. His orders were clear: make contact with anyone who might be sympathetic to Earth's plight, and begin building an alliance. The Artemis, one of Earth's most advanced warships, was ready for the mission. The crew was a mix of soldiers, diplomats, engineers, and scientists, all tasked with the impossible mission of turning Earth's exile into a victory. As the Artemis prepared to leave orbit, Captain Harris stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. His mind raced with the enormity of the task ahead. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, but he wasn't afraid. He knew that the humans would not go down without a fight. The galaxy had cast Earth out, but humanity didn't wait to be told twice. They were ready to face the unknown, ready to prove that they were a force to be reckoned with. The decision had been made, but this was only the beginning of humanity's rise. The galaxy would soon learn that humans didn't need permission to thrive. They would make their own path, one star at a time. The Galactic Council's decision to exile Earth was like a cold wind that swept through the heart of humanity. On Earth, there was no time for mourning or regret. Humanity could feel the eyes of the galaxy upon them, but instead of shrinking back, they stood taller. The anger, fear, and confusion quickly transformed into determination. The human spirit, once again, showed its strength. Captain Ethan Harris stood at the helm of the Artemis, Earth's most advanced warship. The large, metallic bridge was filled with the hum of machines and the soft beeps of communication devices. His crew was busy preparing the ship for its next mission. Earth had been cast out, but they were far from defeated. Ethan adjusted his uniform, his eyes scanning the star charts. The Artemis was ready to leave Earth's orbit and venture into the unknown. The plan was clear: find allies in the vast, uncharted regions of space, away from the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. But even though they were leaving the reach of their former overseers, the journey ahead was not without risks. The Artemis was a powerful ship built for exploration and combat. Its sleek design was a testament to human engineering, and its crew was composed of the best and brightest humanity had to offer. But even with all their advanced technology, they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Artemis could face threats from both the known and unknown dangers lurking in the dark reaches of space. Yet, Captain Harris was determined to make this work. The fate of Earth depended on it. As the Artemis left Earth's atmosphere and entered the cold, dark vacuum of space, Harris gathered his crew for a briefing. They had a long journey ahead, but it was one they would make together. "Listen up," Captain Harris said, his voice calm but firm. "We're not just venturing into the unknown. We're going to show the galaxy that humanity is not a species to be ignored. Earth may have been cast aside, but that doesn't mean we can't rise. We will find allies. We will make our own future." The crew nodded in agreement. They knew the odds. They knew the Council had already begun reinforcing the borders. Around Earth, they also knew that the first few weeks would be the hardest. But the humans on the Artemis had a strength that no other species could match. They had determination. They had ingenuity. And most of all, they had each other. Meanwhile, on Earth, governments around the world were shifting focus. Earth's exile had created chaos in the short term, but it also presented a unique opportunity. The leaders of Earth, from military officials to scientists and strategists, gathered in secret to discuss how to make the best of the situation. Dr. Emily Hayes, a top strategist and one of Earth's most respected thinkers, addressed the world. "Leaders," her voice echoed in the dimly lit room as she laid out a plan for humanity's future. "The Galactic Council has made a grave mistake," Dr. Hayes said, her voice steady with resolve. "They think they can exile us, push us aside, and forget about Earth. But what they don't understand is that humanity thrives in adversity. We will rebuild our strength, not just to survive, but to thrive. It is time for Earth to carve its own path." Her words resonated with those in the room. For years, humanity had been working under the shadow of the Galactic Council, following rules they didn't always agree with, and fighting battles they never truly wanted to be a part of. But now, that was over. The time for passive survival was gone. It was time to lead, to be free. Plans were drawn up to develop new technologies, strengthen military forces, and expand Earth's influence beyond its solar system. The world leaders agreed that they would need to work together, putting aside old rivalries and focusing on a common goal: humanity's survival and rise. Back aboard the Artemis, Captain Harris and his crew had their first real test. As they ventured deeper into uncharted space, they encountered a rogue group of aliens, mercenaries, perhaps, or bounty hunters. The group was not part of the Galactic Council, but that did not mean they were friendly. The ship's sensors picked up strange readings, unusual energy signatures that signaled the presence of another vessel. The crew scrambled into action, readying their weapons and preparing for whatever came next. Harris took his place at the ship's helm, eyes focused on the unknown ahead. "Report," Harris barked. "Unidentified vessel, Captain." Lieutenant Clara Brooks replied, her voice tense. "It's not on our charts. It's small, but it's powerful. They're not responding to our hails." "Do we have a lock on them?" Harris asked. "Yes, sir," the communications officer answered. "They're heading straight for us." Harris glanced at the tactical display. The unknown ship was fast and maneuverable, and it was gaining on them. It seemed to be testing their defenses, circling them like a predator. He didn't know who they were, but he knew one thing: they were not just here to say hello. "Prepare for battle," Harris ordered. "Activate shields, and get ready to fire if they make any aggressive moves." As the unknown ship closed in, the Artemis crew braced for impact. Harris remained calm, eyes scanning the display. The last thing they needed was to get into a fight with an unknown enemy. But if they had to defend themselves, they would do it without hesitation. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the comms. "This is Captain Joro of the Alkavi's Edge," the voice said in a harsh, gravelly tone. "I don't know who you are, but I don't trust anyone who wanders into my territory without an explanation. State your business." Harris leaned forward, speaking into the mic. "This is Captain Ethan Harris of the Artemis. We're not here to cause trouble. We've been exiled by the Galactic Council, and we're just trying to find a way forward." There was a long pause. The silence was almost unbearable. Then Captain Joro's voice came through again. "Exiled, you say?" There was a hint of curiosity in the tone now. "Well, maybe we don't have to fight after all. But you'd better have something to offer if you want to survive out here." Harris's eyes narrowed. "We can offer more than you think. We're not just survivors, we're humans. We fight, we adapt, and we don't give up. We're looking for allies, and we can be useful to you." "Useful, huh?" Captain Joro replied, his voice softening. "All right, Earthling. Let's see what you've got." The encounter could have gone very differently. It could have been a battle that Earth wasn't ready for, but instead, it marked the beginning of an unexpected alliance. Captain Harris had known that humanity's strength lay in its ability to adapt quickly, to find solutions in the face of danger, and in the vastness of space, that was exactly what they would need to do. As the Artemis continued its journey, Harris realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity had been exiled, but they had also been given a chance and opportunity to forge their own path in the galaxy, and they would take it, one step at a time. The Artemis drifted through the dark expanse of space, the stars ahead shining like distant promises. Captain Ethan Harris stood in front of the large windows of the bridge, his mind racing. The ship had just made its first unexpected alliance with Captain Joro of the Alkavi's Edge, a rogue group of mercenaries who had agreed to help humanity, at least for now. It was a small victory in a galaxy full of challenges, but Harris knew it was only the beginning. Humanity was alone in the galaxy, exiled from the Galactic Council's protection. But they weren't helpless. The Artemis had a strong crew, a powerful ship, and a determination that no other species could match. Their goal was clear. They needed to prove to the galaxy that Earth wasn't just a problem to be ignored. It was a force to be reckoned with. Harris glanced round the bridge at his crew. Lieutenant Clara Brooks, the ship's tactical officer, was seated at her station, monitoring the enemy's movements. Commander Jake Reynolds, the ship's engineer, was running diagnostics on the ship's systems, ensuring that everything was in top shape for what was to come. The Artemis was more than just a warship, it was a symbol of humanity's resilience. Harris knew that every part of it had to be in perfect working order. "We have a mission ahead of us," Harris said, his voice steady. "We've made our first alliance, but now we need to make sure we're ready for what the galaxy is about to throw at us. The Council thinks we're weak, that we'll just fold under pressure. We're going to show them just how wrong they are." The crew nodded, understanding the weight of Harris's words. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, but humanity was determined to prove that they were stronger than anyone thought. Meanwhile, on Earth, the leaders of the planet were working tirelessly to build a new future. Governments and military forces were uniting in ways they never had before, focused on a single goal: survival. The world knew that they couldn't rely on the Galactic Council any longer. If they wanted to protect themselves, they had to become self-sufficient. And they had to do it fast. Dr. Emily Hayes, the strategist who had rallied humanity after the Exile, stood at the front of a large conference room filled with military leaders and top scientists. The room buzzed with energy as the discussion shifted from words to action. The task at hand was simple, yet daunting. They had to build up Earth's defenses, create new technology, and ensure that humanity had a fighting chance. "We cannot let the Council decide our fate," Dr. Hayes said, her voice strong. "We have the knowledge, the resources, and the will to stand up to any threat. We will rebuild our strength, and we will take the fight to those who believe they can control us." The room erupted in applause. The leaders knew what was at stake. Earth's exile was a blow, but it had also ignited a fire within humanity. They would no longer be at the mercy of the Council. They would build alliances, form new relationships, and fight for their place in the galaxy. Back aboard the Artemis, Harris and his crew were preparing for a daring mission. After their encounter with Captain Joro, they learned about an alien convoy that passed through the outer reaches of space. This convoy, made up of a mix of alien traders, had supplies that could help humanity. The convoy wasn't allied with the Galactic Council, and they weren't necessarily enemies of Earth. It was a chance for the Artemis to strike. The plan was simple: intercept the convoy, seize the supplies, and send a message to the galaxy that humanity would not be ignored. Harris wasn't looking for a fight, but he knew the risks. The convoy was heavily guarded, and there was always the possibility that things would escalate. But the humans aboard the Artemis were ready. They had no choice but to make their move. "We know the risks," Harris said to his crew, "but this is our chance to show the galaxy that we're capable of more than just surviving. We're going to prove that we're not just another species to be pushed aside." Lieutenant Brooks spoke up from her station. "We've located the convoy, Captain. It's on a direct path through the sector. We'll be in range in a few hours. Good, Harris replied. Let's get into position. Prepare the crew for a potential confrontation. As the Artemis moved into position, Harris couldn't shake the feeling that this was a defining moment for humanity. The galaxy had seen humanity as weak, as disorganized, but they had underestimated Earth's resolve. The crew of the Artemis was ready to prove that humanity was capable of more than the galaxy realized. As the Artemis moved closer to the convoy, Harris's mind raced. The mission was dangerous, but it was also necessary. They needed to send a message to the galaxy Earth wouldn't go down without a fight. The convoy appeared on the sensors. It was made up of several large cargo ships, each heavily protected by armed escorts. Harris knew that the element of surprise would be their greatest advantage. The Artemis was faster, more agile, and better equipped than any of the ships in the convoy. Ready the weapons, Harris ordered. We'll move in, take control of their communications, and disable their shields. We don't want to destroy them. We need their supplies. The Artemis moved swiftly through the stars, closing the gap between them and the convoy. Harris watched as the convoy ships grew larger on the display. This was it. There was no turning back now. All systems are green, Brooks reported. We're ready to go. Captain, let's do this, Harris said, his voice steady. The Artemis powered forward, closing the distance between them and the convoy. The first ship in the convoy, a large freighter, didn't realize what was coming until it was too late. The Artemis moved in swiftly, disabling their communications and throwing their shields offline. The rest of the convoy scrambled, but it was clear they were unprepared for the human ship's speed and firepower. We've got them, Harris said with a tight smile. Prepare to board and secure the supplies. The Artemis crew quickly boarded the convoy ships, taking control of the cargo and ensuring that nothing valuable was left behind. The traders, confused and frightened, were left in the hands of the Artemis crew, who made sure they weren't harmed but understood the message they had sent. Harris watched the operation unfold on the bridge. The mission had been a success. They had secured the supplies, and more importantly, they had sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity was not a species to be ignored. They had just shown the galaxy that Earth could strike quickly and decisively when it needed to. Mission accomplished, Harris said, his voice calm but filled with pride. We've shown them what humanity is capable of. As the Artemis left the convoy behind, moving further into the unknown reaches of space, Harris knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had been cast out, but they had proven that they weren't going to quietly accept their exile. They were going to fight, adapt, and rise above the challenges the galaxy had thrown at them. The galaxy might have voted to exile Earth, but humanity was making its own path now. And this was just the first of many steps toward a future where Earth would no longer be overlooked. Earth would no longer be weak. It would be a force to be reckoned with. The Artemis drifted through the darkness of space, its crew still buzzing with the success of their recent operation. Humanity had taken its first step toward proving that they were a force to be reckoned with. The mission had been simple but effective. They had intercepted an alien convoy, captured valuable supplies, and sent a bold message to the galaxy. But as much as they had accomplished, Captain Ethan Harris knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy's response would come soon, and it would be swift. The Galactic Council, once the governing body of the galaxy, had grown tired of humanity's defiance. The humans had broken the rules, and now they had to face the consequences. Word of the human raid on the convoy had spread quickly, and it was clear that the Council would not stand by idly while humanity challenged their authority. Captain, we've received a transmission from the Galactic Council, Lieutenant Clara Brooks said, her voice tense as she approached Harris. They're furious. They're planning a response. Harris nodded grimly. He had expected this. The Council had always seen Earth as a nuisance, and now they were determined to put an end to humanity's rebellion. They'll come after us, Harris said, his voice steady. But we can't back down. We've made our move, and now we need to stand our ground. The Artemis crew had been through a lot in the past few days, and the weight of their actions was starting to sink in. They had just delivered a powerful blow to the galaxy's elites. But there was no doubt that the Council would retaliate. They would send their best forces to punish humanity for daring to defy them. "Prepare for battle," Harris ordered. "We don't know when they'll strike, but we'll be ready back on Earth." The response from the Galactic Council was already in motion. Earth's leaders, still reeling from the exile, watched as the Council deployed a large fleet toward humanity's former home. The galaxy's elite forces had been mobilized, and they were heading toward Earth with one goal in mind: to teach humanity a lesson. They would never forget. Dr. Emily Hayes, who had become one of humanity's most trusted strategists, was watching the reports coming. The military forces of Earth had been strengthening, but they were no match for the might of the Galactic Council. Still, they had one advantage that no one else could claim: humanity's will to survive. "We have to act fast," Dr. Hayes said to the military leaders gathered around the table. "The Council is coming, and they'll be here soon. We need to deploy our new fleet and prepare our defenses if we're going to stand a chance. We need to hit them where it hurts." The room fell silent as the leaders listened. Everyone knew the stakes. Earth's exile wasn't just about losing a place in the galaxy. It was about losing everything they had worked for, everything they had fought for. "Captain Harris is already making his move," Dr. Hayes continued. "The Artemis and its crew are already out there, showing the galaxy that we won't back down. We need to do the same. We need to be ready to defend ourselves and make the Council pay for what they've done." The Artemis wasn't the only human ship on the move. Across the galaxy, human colonies that had once been abandoned were beginning to mobilize. They had been cut off from Earth for too long. But the exile had sparked something in them. The human spirit, long dormant, was awakening. The desire to survive, to fight for their place in the stars, was stronger than ever. Captain Harris stood on the bridge, staring out into the void of space. The ship was quiet, the crew readying themselves for the worst. The Council's fleet was approaching fast, and there was no question that the battle ahead would be intense. But Harris wasn't worried about the outcome. He had seen the strength and resilience of humanity firsthand. He knew that the humans on the Artemis would fight with everything they had. "We're about to face the largest fleet we've ever encountered," Lieutenant Brooks said, her voice calm but filled with concern. "They'll come at us with everything they've got. We've faced worse," Harris replied, his voice steady. "We'll fight like we always do. We'll do what we have to do to protect humanity." The battle came sooner than anyone had expected. The Artemis and its fleet of allies moved into position just as the first wave of the Council's ships appeared on the sensors. The massive ships loomed ahead, dark and intimidating, their weapons systems already primed for action. Harris could feel the tension rising on the bridge. The crew was ready, but the odds were not in their favor. The Artemis was one ship, and the Council's fleet numbered in the dozens. "Engage," Harris ordered. The Artemis's engines roared to life as it powered forward, its weapons systems lighting up the vast emptiness of space. The first shots were fired, and the battle began. The Artemis dodged incoming blasts from the enemy ships, returning fire with precision and skill. The humans aboard the ship had trained for this moment, and they fought with the determination of those who knew they had nothing to lose. The first wave of enemy ships began to fall back, their shields cracking under the intensity of the human assault. Harris knew it wouldn't be long before the next wave came, and that one would be much stronger. The Galactic Council wouldn't give up easily. They had underestimated humanity, but they were about to learn how wrong they were. On Earth, the military forces were mobilizing, sending out every ship they had to fight back against the Council's fleet. The Artemis had taken the fight to the stars, but humanity needed to show the Council that they weren't just a handful of ships. They were an entire species, united by their will to survive. Dr. Hayes watched the battle unfold on the holographic screens in front of her. The situation was dire, but she wasn't about to give up. The Artemis had started something, and now the rest of humanity had to finish it. "We may be exiled," Dr. Hayes said to the room of military leaders, "but we are not powerless. We are humans. We fight, and we will not stop." The room erupted in agreement. It was time for humanity to show the galaxy that they could stand on their own. They would no longer be silenced. They would no longer be ignored. They would fight for their place in the stars. The battle raged on. The Artemis had taken heavy damage, but it wasn't going down without a fight. The ship and its crew were a symbol of humanity's strength, and every blast fired was a reminder to the galaxy that Earth had not been exiled in vain. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. They were a force that could not be stopped. Captain Harris stood firm at the helm, watching as the enemy ships retreated. The Council's fleet wasn't going to win this battle, not today, not ever. Humanity had proven that they were more than just survivors. They were warriors, and they would continue to fight until the galaxy understood that. And as the Council's fleet began to retreat, Harris knew one thing. This was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. They had made their first strike, and the galaxy would never forget it. The battle was not over. Captain Ethan Harris stood on the bridge of the Artemis, staring at the vast expanse of space before him. The Galactic fleet had retreated, but it wasn't a victory just yet. The Council would regroup, and they would come again. Earth was still under threat, but this time, something had changed. Humanity had proven its strength, and the galaxy had taken notice. As the Artemis continued its journey deeper into space, the crew was still processing the intense battle they had just faced. The ship was damaged, but not beyond repair. The crew, though tired, was determined to keep moving forward. They had fought, they had survived, but now it was time to plan their next move. Captain Lieutenant Clara Brooks called from her station. "We're receiving a message from one of the independent colonies. They've been watching us, and they want to talk." Harris turned to face her. The news was unexpected. Humanity had been cut off from the rest of the galaxy, but now there were signs of hope. Aliens had watched the battle, and some were beginning to understand that humans were not a species to be taken lightly. "Patch it through," Harris said. The screen flickered to life, revealing an alien face. The creature was humanoid, with blue skin and large black eyes. It wasn't a species Harris had encountered before, but the expression on its face was one of curiosity and cautious optimism. "This is Captain Ralu of the Drakari clan," the alien said. "We have watched the actions of your people. You have shown strength. We are interested in discussing an alliance." The crew exchanged surprised glances. An alliance? Humanity had only just begun to make its presence known in the galaxy, and yet, here was a species willing to talk. "We've had enough of the Galactic Council's rule." Captain Ralu continued. "The Drakari are not aligned with them. We've been independent for centuries, and we respect those who fight for their freedom. We offer you our support." Harris was silent for a moment. This was unexpected, but it was a sign of something important. The galaxy had seen Earth as weak, unworthy of notice. But now, they were witnessing humanity's strength, and it was drawing others to them. "I accept your offer, Captain Ralu," Harris replied, his voice steady. "We're not alone in this. We will form our own path, together." The message ended, but the crew was left with something far more valuable than just supplies or technology. They had an ally, and this was just the beginning. Back on Earth, the leaders were working tirelessly to prepare for what was to come. The Artemis had proven that humanity could survive the Council's wrath, but it was clear that this conflict was far from over. The Council would not let Earth's rebellion stand, and there was no time to waste. Dr. Emily Hayes stood in the command center, looking over a large holographic map of the galaxy. The Council had mobilized their fleet, but humanity was making allies, real allies. The Drakari were just the first. There were others out there, alien species who didn't agree with the Council's rule, and they were starting to see the potential of working with humans. "We need to keep making connections," Dr. Hayes said to the gathered leaders. "We can't fight the entire galaxy by ourselves, but we don't have to. If we can convince enough independent factions to join us, we'll have the power to stand up to the Council." Her words were met with nods of agreement. The leaders knew what was at stake. Earth had been exiled, but it had also found an opportunity. The time for hiding was over. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now it was time to show them just how wrong they were. As the days passed, the Artemis and its new allies continued their journey through the galaxy. The Drakari had offered their knowledge of hidden trade routes and their fleet support. Their ships were not as powerful as the Council's, but they were fast, stealthy, and perfect for making surprise strikes. Captain Rala was not the only ally humanity would make. The Therics, a peaceful but warlike species, also reached out to humanity after hearing about their victory. They had seen the humans fight with honor, and they respected that. The Therics offered not only their advanced technology, but also their warriors. Together, humanity and its new allies formed an alliance that could challenge the Council's authority. The Artemis had become the flagship of this new coalition, and Captain Harris was beginning to see the bigger picture. The Artemis was more than just a warship, it was a symbol that humanity had survived against impossible odds, and that they would no longer be dictated by the Council's laws. One evening, as the Artemis traveled through a newly discovered sector of space, Captain Harris gathered his crew for a meeting. They had received another communication from a new aligned alien species called the Irenians, who were known for their psychic abilities. Captain Lieutenant Brooks said as she entered the briefing room, "We've just received a transmission from the Irenians. They've been watching our progress, and they want to offer their assistance." Harris nodded. The Irenians were powerful, their psychic powers unmatched by any other species. If they could add their strength to the growing alliance, it would change everything. "Let's hear them out," Harris said. Standing up, the screen flickered, and another alien appeared. This one had pale white skin, glowing blue eyes, and a serene expression. It was the leader of the Irenians, a being named Velar. Humanity has shown great strength in the face of overwhelming odds, Velar said, his voice calm and powerful. "We have watched you, and we understand your struggle. The Irenians offer our support in your fight against the Council. We possess the power to read minds and influence the outcome of battles. With our assistance, your success is inevitable." The crew was stunned. The Irenians were offering something humanity desperately needed, a way to disrupt the Council's strategy before it even began. The possibilities were endless. "Thank you, Velar," Captain Harris said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We accept your offer. Together, we will reshape the galaxy." The days that followed were filled with excitement and activity. The newly formed alliance of humans, Drakari, Therics, and Irenians worked tirelessly to build their strength. They shared technology, exchanged knowledge, and trained together. What had started as a lone human ship fighting against overwhelming odds was now a full-fledged coalition. Harris stood in the command center, looking out at the stars. His crew had grown stronger, and humanity had proven that it could not be defeated. Earth had been exiled, but instead of withering away, humanity had risen. The galaxy had underestimated them, but now they were a force that no one could ignore. The Artemis was ready for what was to come, and with its new allies, humanity was no longer just surviving, they were fighting for their future, for their place in the stars, and they would not stop until they had reclaimed what was rightfully theirs. The Artemis was in the heart of a vast star system, its crew readying for what could be the most dangerous mission they had faced. After the victories and alliances forged in the past weeks, humanity's new coalition was stronger than ever. The Drakari, Therics, and Irenians stood united with Earth, but there was no time to relax. The Galactic Council had regrouped, and they were coming in full force. Captain Ethan Harris stood on the bridge of the Artemis, looking at the tactical display. The galaxy was vast, but the Council's fleet was closing in. They had underestimated humanity once, and that mistake had led to the rise of the coalition. But this time, the Council wasn't just sending a few ships, they were sending everything they had. "Captain, the enemy fleet is nearing our position," Lieutenant Clara Brooks said, her eyes fixed on the radar. "They've mobilized everything. This is their final attempt to crush us." Harris' face hardened. He knew this was coming. The Council wouldn't allow their authority to be challenged, not by a species they thought of as weak. But humanity was far from weak. The Artemis and its allies had fought together and shown the galaxy what they were capable of. Now, It was time to end this conflict once and for all. "We have one chance," Harris said, his voice steady. "This battle is for everything, for Earth, for our freedom, and for our place in the stars." The crew gathered, eyes on their captain. They had faced hardships, but the bond between them was strong. They had fought, and they had won, but this would be different. The Council's forces were far larger, and they had the resources to end humanity's resistance once and for all. But humanity wasn't going to go down quietly. "We've trained for this moment," Harris continued, his voice growing stronger. "We fight as one. Our strength is in our unity. We won't just defend Earth. We're going to take the fight to them and show them what humanity is capable of." The Artemis and its allies moved into formation. The Drakari ships, swift and stealthy, took up positions around the Artemis, ready to strike from unexpected angles. The Therics, with their powerful warriors and advanced weapons, positioned themselves alongside the humans. The Irenians, with their psychic abilities, prepared to disrupt the enemy's command structure, weakening their forces before the battle even began. The fleet was a mix of strength, speed, and strategy. Humanity had become the heart of this coalition, but it was the unity between all the species that made them unstoppable. "We're ready, Captain," Brooks said, her voice calm but filled with anticipation. "Let's give them everything we've got," Harris replied. The battle began with a sudden burst of energy as the Council's fleet arrived in the system. The first wave of ships, massive dreadnoughts, and battle cruisers appeared out of the black void, their weapons charged and ready to fire. The Artemis and its allies wasted no time. They launched a series of surprise strikes, attacking the enemies' weaker ships and disabling their weapons systems before they could react. Harris watched as the battle unfolded before him. The Artemis was a powerful ship, but it was the unity of the coalition that made them stronger. The Drakari ships darted in and out of enemy formations, disabling shields and sending the Council's ships into disarray. The Therics warriors boarded enemy vessels with precision, taking control of their systems and turning their weapons against their own fleets. Meanwhile, the Irenians used their psychic powers to confuse the Council's commanders, causing them to make mistakes in the heat of battle. "We're making progress, Captain," Brooks reported. "They're losing coordination. Our strikes are having an effect." Harris nodded, but he knew the Council wasn't going to give up easily. The first wave of ships had taken heavy damage, but there was still more to come. "We can't let up," Harris said, his eyes fixed on the battlefield. "We need to press forward while they're disoriented. Take out their flagship. If we can cripple their command, the rest of the fleet will fall." The Artemis surged forward, its weapons firing in rapid succession. The massive Council flagship, a behemoth that dwarfed every ship in the fleet, was the target. It was heavily shielded, but the human alliance had learned its weaknesses. The Irenians used their psychic abilities to disrupt the flagship's command center, throwing its officers into chaos. The Drakari ships moved in close, using their speed to avoid the flagship's heavy weapons and launch precise strikes. The Artemis, with its powerful guns and advanced technology, took its position at the front, firing at the flagship's vulnerable points. The battle raged around them, but Harris knew that taking down the flagship would change everything. The Council's control over the battle would be shattered, and the tide would turn in their favor. "Target their engines," Harris ordered. "If we disable them, they'll be sitting ducks." Brooks and the rest of the crew went to work, coordinating their efforts with the other ships in the fleet. The Artemis's weapons fired again, this time hitting the flagship's engines with devastating precision. The massive ship began to slow, its momentum faltering as its power systems started to fail. "We've got them," Brooks said, a grin spreading across her face. "They can't escape now." But the battle was far from over. The Council's remaining forces, seeing their flagship crippled, launched one final attack. They came at the Artemis with everything they had: more ships, more weapons, and all their remaining firepower. The Artemis and its allies were outnumbered, but they fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. "We can't let them escape," Harris said, his grip tightening on the command chair. "Finish them off. Don't give them a chance to regroup. The final push was brutal. The Artemis, battered and damaged, moved in for the kill. The Therics and Drakari ships moved in behind, attacking with precision. The Iranians continued to disrupt the Council's communications, causing confusion and chaos within their ranks. And then, with one final blast from the Artemis, the last of the Council ships was destroyed. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's final stand, and it had not been in vain. The Council's fleet, once so powerful and intimidating, was reduced to debris. The human alliance had emerged victorious. In the aftermath, the coalition ships hovered in the silence of space, the remnants of the battle fading away. Harris stood at the front of the bridge, staring at the wreckage of the Council's fleet. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. "We did it," Brooks said, her voice soft with relief. "We won." Harris nodded, his face set with determination. "We didn't just win a battle. We've changed the course of history." As the crew of the Artemis stood together, they knew one thing: humanity had been exiled from the galaxy, but they had proven their worth. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now, the humans would take their place in the stars not as outcasts, but as leaders. The fight wasn't over. The Galactic Council had been defeated, but humanity's true journey was just beginning. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson, and the humans were ready to lead. Their place in the stars was secure, and they would never again be told what they could or couldn't do. This was only the beginning of humanity's rise, and the galaxy would never forget the name Earth again.